Hello and welcome to episode 47 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is... There's somebody making a noise in the background. Again, it happens every week we do this. But anyway, we'll carry on regardless. And my name is Simon Forster. I'm joined by at least two noisy co-hosts. One of them is Andrew Bartram and the other being Eric Matty. But we've also got a guest, and we've got Nicholas Nixon. I've messed that up massively because it's nothing. It doesn't sound like I've actually meant to say it, and I know that it's spelled completely differently. But we'll get to hear the correct pronunciation of Nico's name very, very shortly. But because he's Nico from Nico's Photography Show on YouTube. So hello, Andrew.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Eric.
Hello, Simon. And for the record, that was not me making that noise.
No, as usual, it was Andrew. It's always Andrew trying to put me off at the start. And hello, Nico.
Hello, guys.
It's great to have you with us, Nico.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Nicole Small, who was our guest in the last show.
Roll, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, I'm so professional. So thank you for being with us, Nicole. It was absolutely brilliant having you on the show. So I'm going to hand over to Eric. So take us away.
Well, I'm not sure what you're handing over to me because you actually just introduced Nico exceptionally well. So it's like, well, how can I follow up on that?
You can always actually try and say what his surname is. So go for that.
Nico Llasera. Like Yasser, like as he said, right? The double L.
Very close.
The guy from Wisconsin almost gets it, which is just about as much big of a victory as I can get. But actually, I'm really, I have to say, completely unedited and uncensored as I usually am. I'm really fucking excited to have you on, Nico. Like you and I think I started watching your channel actually when you started it, and we chatted back and forth a few times years ago. Mm-hmm. When I was doing the Route 66 project, and you're like, I want to come to the United States and like take a tour of people across the US to photo stops and whatever. And I was like, that would be so dope. You should totally do that. So it's literally years I've been hoping to run across you, hopefully in the physical space someday. But for now, the virtual one will do. And I'm also rather pleased. I was curious, total curiosity point on my side, that the mustache is real. Because sometimes the mustache, when you do the news channel, I sometimes wonder whether or not it was like a little paste on like a caricature of an American newscaster.
No.
You know,
it's real. It's real. This started off a year ago. I guess a year and a bit ago. I had a wedding in the States, and my political family is quite tense in certain situations. And I honestly don't take things so seriously. So I was like, you know what? Everybody's going to be so tense in a wedding, weddings. And I was like, I am the Spaniard and nobody really cares. So I'm going to just do something different. So I left a really like this stash. And that became actually the whole conversation at the wedding. So I managed to blow off some steam between people. So it stayed. And this summer it happened because I did a video about being Nicholas Nixon and his self-portrait. And I grew a beard and the stash stayed. I shaved it all off. And then I was like, I just try to make fun of it with my wife and kids. And when you suddenly realize you're a YouTuber and you're like, oh wait, I need it for today. I'm gonna have this on my face today. I gotta keep it for a couple of weeks at least. And then I kept it.
And then it just became like a favorite pet. It's just like living on top of your lip.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually I love it when you cut your hair. So one day we're looking at you and you during lockdown and you were kind of wild. Next time you were shorn and very trim, and then over the weeks we just watch it grow. Exactly. Is that just me? I get a peculiar fascination.
I was actually going to cut it today. I was going to shave it off today. So you got the last of my long hair. And those people listening probably won't know, but yeah, probably last day of long hair.
It is wavy. It is like total 70s, like wavy do. But actually, that brings me to a question I had, I guess, the first question, because I actually went back and rewatched your very, very first the very, very first YouTube videos, the one where you did the announcement, and then episode 1, like the very first episode, which was really just you in front of a wall with like a bunch of, and you were obviously learning, right? But a bunch of like chop edits, like this is Nico, and like it's just really visible, like chop edits. And then I was like, man, I remember this when did he go to the name of the fake character from there's a movie about newscasters, like with the tie and the suit and everything. A few years later, you totally switched personas to this like Nico's News with a really professional video front and everything, which was just brilliant, but really different from where you started. So I was curious, like, when did you decide to kind of change that format up?
Well, the funny thing is I never really changed the format. I guess it did to people, but I didn't try. When I started YouTube, I basically was going to lose my job, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing this because, I was prepping like we all do, but we never start. So I just decided to launch it. And, truth be told, you think it's just turning on a camera and you sound and you look amazing. And that first episode, like you saw, it's not like that at all. But yeah, like I don't know how long into it I've always been a geek for news and what's going on, and I realized there was no media, there was no information whatsoever in any website, forum, blog, anything. And I was like, podcast even. And I was like, well, all these little pieces of news are actually good news about film industry. Nobody knows about it, and we're all talking about film is dead. It was 2015. It was not yet so dead anymore, but it was still pretty shadow area, and people were kind of still sad about stuff. So I started, and I was like, okay, I want to do these news, but like me sitting in front of a camera saying news feels like a little awkward. So I turned around at work. I work with my dad, and I told my dad, do you have like an old suit, but it has to be very, very, very tacky. It can't be like a nice suit. And he's like, oh yeah, I have this low, and it's an actual Loewe suit, which is like a super expensive brand, but it's 80s. And actually, if I extend my arms are way longer than my dad's. So like so you'll see me at the news all the time, like picking my arms because I don't want my shirt to come out. So I basically decided to make it a whole scene. I did the intro. I paid for like some Adobe After Effects intro, and I made it custom and whatnot. And I decided and I started, and that was it. That was the beginning of the news. And I thought it was going to be just, something silly I would do and nobody would really care. And it's become pretty much the core of the channel in a way. And it's funny because now I have the pressure every week that I have to come up with news and I have to be always alert. The worst part is the always alert. You always have to be looking into Facebook groups and Instagram. Like I wouldn't have a Facebook account if it wasn't for the news because I really don't like the social media part of it. Instagram right now probably wouldn't have it either. I would just probably do the YouTube right now if it wasn't for the news. But I have to keep track and even though I tell all the brands seem, and might sound like a rant, and I don't want to sound like a rant, but like there's brands with 1,000 followers on Instagram, let's say, and they come out with a new product. They'll put it on their stories. And you're like, okay, well, it takes 1 second to send me that story or piece of news or an email to my YouTube channel or email, and I'll put it on the news. I'll be happy to broadcast about it. There's no brand I've ever said no to. Oh, I don't like your stuff, I won't put it out. Right. But they won't. And then you have to be finding these little brands and stories to tell. And you're like, how easy would it be to give this piece of information to and you said probably the only source of news, maybe there's more places now, but and I always struggle every week. Like an hour and a half before I record, I have no news every week.
And do you think that's sort of because I would say that the photography film industry outside of the really huge players, not huge, I'll put that in air quotes, right? Because they're not so huge anymore. Like Kodak is not the giant dominating force it once was in like the entire world. Like Kodak, Ilford, ADOX to a certain extent, besides certain key players that have a PR budget and probably like 2 or 3 or 5 like public relations persons, it seems to me that the photography industry for film is generally like a sea of small fish, right?
Yep.
Like people who are rebranding film or doing little startups and Kickstarters and making their own light meters and whatnot, right? And they don't have PR people per se.
No.
And do you think that the reason it is an ecosystem of so many small players is because of that like lack of organization or lack of like PR ability, that it's just enthusiasts who are going after it?
It's very I mean, like you said, like I think there's two main subjects. You have the big boys, big fish, Kodak, Fuji, I don't know, Ilford, stuff like that will announce things, and everybody under the sky will talk about it. Ektachrome came back. I mean, I think my grandmother knows about it, and she's been dead for 10 years, like everybody knows about it. But the moment that Reveni Labs or whatever brand, and I'm speaking out brands that I know, like, I don't know, Cosmo Photo, someone makes something new, or you, Eric, like your little lenses that are made with like dollar bills, which is how we met the first time properly, which I have it over there, still haven't used it. I'm a disaster, but we can talk about that later. But basically, all these things are happening. You have the other side. And what happens is there's a middle ground now of brands that have realized, oh, wait, we could launch it and tell Nico about it. And then not only will we make our social media thing with their X amount of followers, which is usually not huge, and then put it on the news. And a lot of people are announcing on Tuesdays, and that's for the news. And it's super cool. Like, to me, the first time a brand reached out, small or big, and told me, hey, we have this new product that's coming out, but we want to launch it on the news with you. It was like, whoa, like that's like I want to tell my wife, but my wife won't understand, like it's right. Really hard to talk about these things that you guys might understand because you're in the film world. But like these situations are quite weird. And at the beginning was very flattering. It still is, but you get more used to it and there's more things coming out. But yeah, I think that's part of it. Like, there's small brands, there's usually a one-man team. They're trying to manage orders and social media, sometimes making their own videos. And for example, with Reveni, who I have a good relationship with, Matt, and I won't say his last name because that's much harder than mine.
We interviewed him.
And I messed his name up as well, quite royally.
I mean, I don't think anybody can say it except for him. Like with Matt, his first Kickstarter, when I watched the first video, I was like, oh my God, someone has to tell him, like, just make things, don't talk to camera. And he's gotten much better. The second launch of his spot meter, he was way more fluid and better. But like, I talked behind the scenes with him, like, hey, maybe you want to buy a softbox and like a light. And I use these cheap lights. They work because all these YouTube little tips and tricks nobody tells you about. At least I didn't get anyone to tell me about. And you learn. So the Kickstarter does well because a successful Kickstarter like his, I think he raised like $200,000.
Yep.
Is such a massive difference compared to the first one, which I don't know, I remember maybe 70,000. So it's 3 times the yield with a better video, also a lot more social media. Like, he asked me, like, I don't know if he only asked me, but he did ask me, like, do you know any other large format photographers that could benefit from trying this spot meter? And I recommended him like Nick Carver and Ben Horn. I think Matt Mirage still wasn't doing all these videos, but maybe he was. And a couple, maybe Todd Coral. Coral. Yeah, Coral. His last name I got wrong on the news, so he told me it's Coral. So he told these people, and that's been successful. So I actually love the idea of helping brands when they're going to launch something. And I'm not an expert, but I think I know a little bit more after 182 newscast of how a successful campaign can happen.
So do you ever think about like changing that? And it would, I think, sort of, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because now that you have those skills and that knowledge, like, you could actually become a marketing agency, right, for these small brands to help them out with that thing. Although that would endanger your standing as the newscaster per se. But it seems to me that if the film industry could really, the smaller, like mom and pop shops, as they say here in the States, could really benefit from that sort of thing, like, you could actually turn that into a sort of...
First of all, I think there's a misconception about working with a brand and talking about a brand. Right. So I have no problem taking anyone's money, and that in general in life. I mean, I have my stakes in economy, and how I get sponsored is only has to be related to film. So, I mean, nobody's come and told me, hey, MasterCard wants to sponsor your news. They want to give you $10,000 per news. Maybe I would do it. But like, I only take money from film brands. And that is because that's the only thing I want to talk about. Like, you guys are listening to a podcast right now, or you're watching a YouTube video. You don't want to talk about, I don't know, a bed cushion or a mattress or a sofa. Oh, hey, look, this Hoover. Like, you don't want to hear about that stuff. So I was like, I can only be sponsored by news, but that limits the amount of income you can make because these are small startups. So when I do that, like, I don't have a problem. And I always told the brands, like, if you sponsor me, it's fine. We'll find a way to integrate it into the channel, but I will never speak better about it because you paid. And if you send me a unit to test or something, I won't speak better of it because you send it to me and I have no problem. And if a brand decides, hey, Nico, you were a total douchebag on that video talking about this product or X product, like, we're not sending any more, it's their loss to me. I mean, it gives me a ton of work to do it. And you make some yield on money, and that's without payment even. But it's at the end, the people that are really controlling my channel or whatever I success are the viewers. So if right now I think I'm like at 19,000 subscribers, something like that, which is not big for YouTube terms, but it is huge for me. If those 19,000 people didn't like my stuff, I have nothing to do.
Right.
I would just be taking pictures on my own in Spain or wherever I am, and that's it. And I really value those people that are behind, either interviewing me on a podcast or watching or leaving a comment, being Patreons, whatever it is. And those are the ultimate. Like, if a brand gets pissed off at me because I say their camera or their lens is a trash, well, you should have sent me a better camera and a better lens. And it's on you. And this is what happens to me is, if a brand sends me a product and it's unfinished, you got to be ready. Like, Eric, you sent me a lens that's, the dollar lens, and we know that it has the special features. I mean, of course, that's not going to be a Rodenstock or a Schneider. No. But I got it from you, and I paid for it because we did that like that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't free in any way, and you never told me, hey, Nico, make a review. It was just like that. It was a normal transaction. But if it was what it is, I'll speak. I'll say, look, it looks this way, or look, like, I wouldn't be ashamed. And if you would have given it to me and said, oh, this is the best thing ever, it's going on Kickstarter, I'm going to raise millions, I would have said, like, okay, send it to me. But if I say in the video, this thing looks like, like a little mirrored with, like, peak hole, it is what it is. Right. So yeah, I don't get too concerned about that, like mixing the news and brands.
Two questions. One occurred to me while you were saying earlier, Nico, about not really turning away any brands. And there was a Kickstarter a few years ago. It was Yashica. They came back and got the name, didn't they? And they had a film, but it wasn't really a film. It was phony little things that dropped in. Do you remember? And it was
the digi film.
A digi. So maybe that did that make an appearance on your show?
No.
No.
And anything film, yes. Anything non-film, no.
So that was just pretending to be, wasn't it?
I mean, this was like, I thought it was a brilliant idea in the concept. I love the idea because people shoot stuff on digital and then use filters and edit. So the idea of getting a final product, and I thought about it in SD cards. I was like, that would be awesome if you could buy a Canon RP or Canon R or whatever it is, and buy an SD card that gave you the Portra 400 look. And every shot you took and saved there, it would save, imagine, an original RAW, just in case, and then the Portra look. I mean, honestly, I don't shoot digital except for video for the YouTube channel, and I don't enjoy it. But the reason I didn't enjoy it when I started with digital again in 2007, it was every time I took a picture, I had to think about what I wanted to do with it. And that was so mind-blowing. I was like, okay, I have this raw file. What do I do with this now? Because do I want to make it film noir? Want to make it like saturated HDR? And it was like, I don't know what to do. And that killed me. And the moment I picked up a film camera, I was like, oh, this shot really would look great in Portra. Or this shot would look great in Ektar, which nothing I've shot looked great in Ektar ever, but that's just me. Or maybe this looks great in HP5. Or my favorite film used to be Fuji Neopan 1600 in 35. Yeah. Like if I could buy a digital camera normal and use an SD card that could give me that look immediately, and maybe these film emulations they have in Fuji could be that, I'd be pretty happy to shoot digital every now and then. I still don't like it, but.
Or that posh Leica, the monochrome, is it? That has that can do something like that, can't it?
Well,
yeah.
Actually, most of the digitals nowadays have, with the film emulation, the pre-visualization in the viewfinder of this is what it's going to be, right? Black and white, high contrast. You set it, do it, whatever. The Fuji ones in particular are pretty good for that visualization, and they'll typically save a raw file as well. To the point, actually, sometimes where when you import it into Lightroom, it just imports the raw file. Like, where'd that visualization go? Son of a bitch! How do I get that back? So a lot of them will do that, but it's still digital.
Well, I'm sorry to get you down this digital path. It's let's do a quick reverse turn around because I've seen you in a video recently. I think it was probably when you were reviewing the new Ilford. It was maybe the new portfolio paper, the new heavyweight resin coated paper, which I've tried it out on postcard size, which aren't really postcards. But you've got this DeVere 8x10 enlarger. You've got a myriad of cameras because you often surround yourself. You gave away an RZ 67, which I was very annoyed that I didn't win. But anyway,
well, before you finish that, I actually still have it here because I'm a disaster at shipping things. So I owe the winner an email and probably another pro pack of film to say, I'm really sorry, it's April and you still didn't get the camera I gave away in December. I'm horrendous at shipping.
And then you have this. That was great for you to do that bingo. I watched the whole hour or so of you drawing those little balls out, and I was mesmerized by you doing it.
It's the sweater. It was the sweater.
It was brilliant. I thought that was just such a fantastic thing to do for the community. Most recently, I've been fascinated by the large format monorail camera you've had, which is like 3 meters long.
It's just
that's it. I can see it behind you. But for the sake of those viewers watching in black and white. So you've only just been into film. Is that what you're saying? Did I understand you right? You've only really got into film photography within the last few years?
No. I shot film before there was anything else but film.
Right.
But I chose girlfriends better than film because film was extremely expensive, as much as people think it's expensive today. They should have been around in the 2000s, late 90s. It was still expensive there. And I came back to it in 2009-ish. I once again was going to lose I wasn't losing my job. That was a friend that told me he bought a Hasselblad. And I was like, oh my God, film is for romantic people, the whole chemical and the dark room. And the moment I went online, because I do this every single time, I've done it since I was a kid, is I'll say, oh my God, that thing stinks. And then that same day I would look into it and be like, oh wait, it doesn't really stink. It's actually super cool. And I would end up with it in a week, like bicycles, whatever it was. I would always be like, oh, that BMX stinks. And then next month I had my own BMX. So basically that's what happened. I said, Hasselblad, whatever. And when I looked online and it was the price of the lens I was looking to buy, which I was shooting full frame digital, and I was looking to buy an 85-1.4. And I was like, wait, Hasselblads are cheaper? And I was like, I knew that Hasselblads were, the Hasselblads, what they were. And I decided to pick one up. And ever since I looked through the viewfinder, as we all know, I kind of got sucked into it. And I'm a tactile person. My grandfather was a sculptor. I lived in his workshop. I have sculptures around Spain with my name on them because I helped him. So I don't like things that I can't touch. So those raw files I would put in and have to decide were so complicated. But you give me a piece of film and you tell me, hey, put this in a camera, shoot it, develop it, print it. I'll love it. And I got really hooked. And I'm a very gear guy. So I have everything, like you said.
So you've got your 8x10 enlarger. You're a Jobo fanboy, because we've communicated on this. I'm a sort of Jobo. I've just broken my Jobo cherry or whatever I've done, burst it. That's what I've done, haven't I? And You've been very helpful. I've messaged you a few times. You've been very helpful, and I've only got the basic CPE2, which I was given. It was a gift, which was lovely. Somebody in the community sent it to me.
Yeah,
and but you've got some nice gear.
Yeah. I bought my own Jobo after my local lab screwed my film for the third time. And ever since, I just started gathering Jobos because I found, first the brand was going under when I got mine, and then it never did. And I just liked gear. So I just was like, okay, Jobo reels, then Jobo. Oh, I want to shoot 4x5. What do I need? Oh, you need the 2509, or you need this, and you need the 2509N for the 4x5. And then I was like, oh, but what if I want to shoot 8x10? Oh, you need the 3005. Oh, for the 3005, I need expert machine that can take expert tanks. So okay, let me look, CPP3 or CPP2. CPP3 wasn't around yet. All these things. And the funniest part of it is I went to Photokina 2016 out of my own pocket because I was like, you know what? The news are misrepresented in the film world. I'm going to buy myself a ticket to Photokina. My channel had like 700 subscribers. And I got my logo and everything paid for to go. I basically invested in myself. And I went there, and when I was talking to Johannes Brockenmuller, who's Jobo number 3, because Joe is Johannes and Bo is Brockenmuller, so the name is the name. That's where it came from. I was talking to him, and they had all these tanks in the back. I was like, oh, you got the 3062. He's like, and he turns around, and he kind of looks at them like, I don't know which one you're talking about, because he is the owner. But I guess I knew a lot more about the brand than he did, because his family decided that someone had to not work in the Jobo brand. And he studied something different. He worked something different. But then when the brand was going under, he took over. So he's not so much of a Jobo enthusiast, even though being the owner. And they ended up distributing the brand in Spain for a couple of years, which was not a good choice, but I did. Because I thought I overestimated the film, renaissance, and basically didn't sell much. So I moved away. But I have a good relationship with the brand because of that. But yeah, I do have a lot of gear, and I have good taste.
Yeah,
I think
you do.
I think I won't say I do, but I think
The Jobo. I was a bit dismissive of Jobo for I think for the cost of it. And I developed my 4x5 sheets in various things like the Stearman Press 445, which I find to be excellent. As long as you do fairly random rotations. I've used the Mod 54 pretty well. I've used Jeff Perry's 20th Century insert. And but the Jobo I'd always been a bit dismissive of, and I'd seen the BTZ tubes, the rotary. Until I was given one, and I'm a bit of a convert now. But what is it, do you think, about, particularly for large format users, because this is obviously the large format photography podcast, what is it that you love about that sort of Jobo system? And do people have to go and spend a load of money, or can they get the same results through hand rotation on one of those little rollers?
I mean, my biggest inspiration as photographers, none of them use Jobos, so there you go. You can do it another way. But talking about that, you said it yourself. It's the Jobo system. And I don't like talking about Apple too much because it gets too much hype. But it's like the Apple ecosystem. You get. And I just got into the iPhone again and the Apple Watch and whatnot. But like the Jobos grow with you, and you can start with a small tank like the one you have behind right now. I can see in the video. It's the 2520, if I'm not wrong. And then you start with that one and you're like, well, I'm going to shoot more film. So you buy one more reel and you buy a bigger tank or an extension, or I really want to do color and I'll get a CPE handy down or whatever if you got good friends like you do, or you buy it yourself, which they're not that expensive. And then you're like, oh, I want to do 8x10. Then you have the Jobo. So you can grow with it as you grow, and everything will still be useful pretty much. What happens is if you go, sorry, Eric, 1 sec. If you go the other route, it's that like I use the SP445 for 4x5 many times when I just have 4 sheets and I'm like, I'm not going to start the Jobo. But if you want to do 8x10, they have the tray system, but it's a completely different thing. Doesn't really yield with the other machine. Like to me, is that it's like the coherence. Is it overpriced? Yes. Does it feel like plastic from this 90s in a toy RC car? Yes. Does it work amazingly? Yes.
Yeah. It sounds more like a creeping disease of some kind. Like, well, you start with this, then you get this extension, then you get it like creeps up on you, and next thing you know, you're covered in Jobo gear, unable to move out of your room because you have piles of it everywhere.
I'll make a video when I move out of my studio, and you'll see I have currently in this studio there's 7 Jobo machines and probably 30 tanks.
So it's the creeping Jobo disease.
Exactly. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's made shooting any size, any format possible at a fraction of the price for developing. I won't say the price of the machines because they're not cheap, but developing, you save money in chemistry. Film economy in the sense of chemistry is important when you're shooting slides or you're shooting C41 8x10, stuff like that.
Right.
They've paid for themselves many times by the amount of film I put through them compared to paying for a lab. And I love labs, but sorry, labs, you guys don't do a great job with sheet film most of the time.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. I mean, I've started to collect things now. Most of the system I started on was the 1500 series, and I've got Jeff Perry's insert for the 1500, 1510 and 1520 together, so that becomes a 1530. See, I can speak your language. And then Jeff, you can put Jeff's insert in there, and I've been experimenting with using that in there, and I'm getting some marks from the center arm thing that goes over. And then I recently bought the 1520, and then I got a 2.5. It came with I got a good deal on the tank and a 2509 reel, which was the 4x5 reel. But it wasn't the end, and the end version for nerdy listeners, has got two little wing insert things that help with the flow of chemistry around the sheets, and also stops the sheets flying out of the reel, maybe. And I'm now getting good results. I spent last weekend. I worked through pretty much a box of Fomapan, just taking shots out in the garden, into the darkroom, trying different things, and I've got it nailed, I think now. Partly because I was using the slow speed on my old CP2. It's got a slow speed, and no one told me because I didn't have any. I didn't read instructions that I really should do it on the fast speed. And now I'm getting great results.
I mean,
and I've got a print drum. It came with a print drum as well, so that's up there somewhere.
Yeah, for example, the print drums. There's a drum that's called, I think, the 2553. I think, which is the paper drum. You can do 8x10 on that. I've done it, and it worked fine. It's not recommended by anybody, but I've done it and it worked. When I have a lot of sheet film, I end up running out of tanks, so I use that one. But it's just Jobo was that thing that I found that fit everything I needed to do, and it worked fine. And then there was a community of people that were helpful. For example, Cat Labs of JP, who's Jobo USA. He was one of the biggest reasons why Jobo's still around. He took over selling it in the US when there was nothing in the US in film tanks and stuff like that. So he's always been extremely helpful when I've had any questions. Recently I decided I was going to fix one of my Jobo machines. And he told me, oh, yeah, for sure, it's this part. I just told him, it does this noise when I lift it. And it was me telling him, it makes a clack, clack, clack. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is this piece. This guy in Germany, Klaus something. I'm not going to say his last name because I won't remember. And basically, he'll send it to you. And it's a €3 piece, €3. So $5 or maybe £2 or something like that. That fixes a $3,000 machine, and that's it. Now it should be fixed the moment I put it in, and I can keep on developing automatically.
Yeah, no, they are great. I think most people, though, if they're trying to rationalize the purchase of one of these things, they're probably not comparing it to the cost of lab developing. They're thinking, well, at the moment, I'm using a Patterson tank and I'm getting great results or something. So, it is a mental leap, a good bit of justification needed, I think. But maybe start off, if people are thinking out there of doing some 4.5 processing and you like the idea of a Jobo system, then pick up a CPE2 or CPE2 Plus, which I think has probably got a slightly better motor in it or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're good to go. Mine doesn't. You can get fancy ones where it has a lifting arm where at the end of the developing sequence you lift it up and the chemicals go into a jug or something. I haven't got that. I just have to yank mine off the magnet and
the day you get a lift, you'll be rebirth.
Well, I did discover by looking on the Jobo website that they still produce a new machine. I had no idea.
Yep. So they came back.
And it is this. Is it the CP3 or?
Yeah, CPE3 would be the small version, just like yours. Yep. And then they sell the CPP3, which is P for professional, I'm guessing. And and they're the same machine. I've had both here because, like I said, I worked with Jobo, and they actually one day suddenly at my warehouse at work, there's a huge box, and someone's like, "Hey, someone brought you this." I'm like, I'm not expecting anything, and it says Jobo, and I'm like, why is this here? And there was a brand new CPP3 and a CPE3 that he just sent to me to take to a photo fair, and the CPP3 stayed with me for like, I don't know, a year or 2 years. And I used it. Honestly, it's the same thing as the old stuff, just new. But it's exactly the same plastics. They haven't really changed anything, which is my major issue with the brand. Is like, come on, guys. Like, you got a great system. Yes, it works. But like, invest a little bit, especially if the machine's $3,000+.
Well, even the one I've got, the modern version of that on their site with the lift arm is 1,700-1,800 euros or something. And it's this flimsy kind of plasticky material.
No, it's
rubbish.
It's rubbish. It's trash. The plastic is trash. It doesn't feel like anything you would like. If you owned a computer in the 90s, that's like the panel on the side. That's basically how they feel. That plastic, probably even worse than that.
You want to spend a load of money on something, and you need to justify it to yourself. You need to overcome that cognitive dissonance that marketeers call it. And so you need to, you buy something and it's not helpful when it's kind of flimsy.
Yeah. They should put some brass that you don't need on the machine just to make it look better,
Just to make it look classy.
Exactly. So your whole existence now is all about film photography, Nico. What about when you're not on air or thinking about being on air or researching? Are you still in love with going out with a camera or a large format camera or medium format camera or 35mm camera? What do you like to shoot with?
Well, I have the problem of being, like you said, too invested into the community. For my job, I wake up very early, but now I wake up 45 minutes earlier so I can answer comments every day. So I wake up currently at 4 a.m. Every day of the week, not the weekend. To answer, but I do enjoy shooting, but because the very limited time I have around, shooting time is with my family, I have to include them. Large format has become something I do less of, and I'm doing a lot more normal shooting. So my whole photography is family. I shoot my kids all the time. That sounds terrible, but I take pictures of my kids all the time. I do shoot them with Nerf guns and stuff like that. I got 2 girls, so I got to, make them tough because this world's not easy for women. So basically, I don't shoot as much as I would want to, but I do enjoy it. So, but like you were saying, I spend like 99% of my awake time film photography, either talking to people, answering comments, talking into Discord servers, answering emails or Instagram stuff. Right now I'm going to meet some friends to have a beer, and they're film shooters, so we'll talk about film cameras. So I never get bored of this so far.
So actually, I have a question. Actually, I always have questions, me. But if you're not shooting large format because you don't have that much time, and you're reaching for gear, what do you reach for? 1 and 2. When you're looking at the channel, then you're like, okay, I want to do a feature on a piece of equipment. How do you decide what you're going to do? Like, an older camera that's not in production anymore. Do you say, I'm going to shoot the Texas Leica today? Like, the Infamous Fuji 690. Is it just, how do you decide what you're going to go after? Because there's so much out there, right?
Yeah, and there's so much out there and so much in this room too. But first question would be, what do I pick? When I got a studio, this is my studio where I'm at, is where I shoot the super film support and the developing stuff with this fake kitchen I built during the pandemic. It's a total fake kitchen. You guys can't see it on the podcast, but I built myself I don't even own my own home, but I own a fake kitchen. So when I'm shooting at home, I got to pick up what's at home. And I brought all my gear to the studio because, of course, I had too much, and my family were getting a little, hey, Daddy, you have too many cameras. So I have a couple cameras at home. The one that's always close by is a Leica M2. That's my family camera of choice. Then medium format depends on what I feel like, but I usually don't walk around with medium format. Honestly, medium format wasn't really made to walk around, except for a couple of exceptions. It was more made for studio work and fashion work and editorial work and, all these things. So like I've found out that, like I like a big negative because I do like it. But honestly, shooting whatever walk around pictures of a fire hydrant on a Hasselblad, it becomes redundant after 3 shots,
Right.
So Hasselblad is something I'll pick because it's small and easy to carry, but I don't really shoot that much medium format like that. I rather do portraits or, certain projects. And then large format, then I will really be like, I really want to shoot this thing. And to answer the second part or second question, what do I pick to feature on the channel? That's a really hard one. And honestly, I think everybody on the YouTube game struggles because there's 2 choices. There's what I want to do and what makes sense to do. And makes sense in the economical reason. We are talking about a hobby for most people, but for people that are more committed like me or maybe you guys, other YouTubers and stuff, you have to really balance what is popular at the time. So I would love to go out and shoot on my Bronica GS1 and make a whole video on it. And, it's amazing. And it's the underdog. And the Mamiya guys are the gang, or Mamiya is probably my favorite brand. But the Mamiya gang is overrated. But like nobody will watch that because, I can make, not nobody, but very little amount of people. But if I go ahead and buy a Leica M6 and walk around shooting trash pictures, it will be so hyped. Like everybody will watch it. So, and I'm talking from analytical point. Like I have analytics of what people search, what people click, how many people watch. Like it's amazing how much YouTube. Do think YouTube is owned by Google, so it's like the second biggest search engine out there. So I know everything. So if I had to make a living out of this 100%, it would be all Instax photography.
Really?
Oh my God, Instax is so much money compared to anything else.
Interesting.
But and I'm not exaggerating, probably a 10-1. So with that said, I try to balance a bit of what do I love doing and what do I show that makes sense. So I'll make one for me, maybe one for them, maybe 2 for me, maybe 2 for them. Like the super film support stuff I do on Mondays, nobody really watches that because nobody's searching, I don't know, how to use polarized filters with a rangefinder. Like I did that last week and nobody's really researching that. So I'm not going to get any hits. And I'm not a big YouTube channel in the sense of the bigger guys. So I'm not just making any video and I get sponsored by a brand and then I get, I don't know, whatever amount of money and that's it. Next video next week. So I have to really pick my topics, but I do like helping the community. And like Andrew said, I will happily help anybody about Jobo equipment. I've never not answered an email unless I'm too busy and forget about it, which happens a lot more recently. And that's why I changed my waking up schedule. And that's the thing, what do you do that will be popular and pay the bills? If I had to make a full living out of YouTube, which right now it's starting to be possible, maybe soon, I then would have to focus really doing I need to do 2 for the money, right, 1 for me, and then maybe 2 for the community because I know they love it. Right. Because then there's a lot of different sources of income. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about on the film world, but income is important. We all eat, we all need a house, we all need to buy film, we all need all these things, microphones, whatever it is. And as much as we love
for our kids,
college for our kids. Thankfully, it's pretty much free around where I live and where I hope to live. But it's one of those things you need to think about. So you got Patreons to help, you got sponsors, you got donations, stuff like that. But AdSense is also a revenue, so you got to consider the algorithms and the search engines.
Mm-hmm. So for you then, you have to start making a series of really conscious choices of this show. There's the Lomo Instax 4x5 back. That's on pre-order. We should talk about that and try to get one versus giving back to the community. Because one of the things that struck me when you're talking about the Jobo, the 15 minutes of living life a la Jobo was, the community around the Jobo product is so massive. And there's a gentleman in Germany who has a €3 piece that fixes everything, and nobody really knows about it. And you'd have been screwed starting out with Jobo without the community, right?
Yeah.
And things like a polarizing filter is for the community. And I would venture that from a financial sense, that connection with the community and that earnestness and that like coming from the heart is as important to your brand as the connection with a large brand who's willing to pay you, because they're not going to be willing to pay you if you don't have a genuine connection with the community.
Yeah.
Like there's these two things that seem to be hand in hand, but are also completely at odds with each other.
Yeah. I mean, the main issue I have a lot of times when I talk to brands is like, I happily help them, but I always say, and I say this to the community too, is like, I don't sell anything. I don't sell t-shirts. I don't sell, reels. You were talking about the reels from Jeff, which are 20th century camera. I don't sell, plugins. I don't sell cameras like Intrepid, or I don't sell light meters like Reveni. So like what I sell is what I can do, which is community and information, and hopefully putting, 2 and 2 together. Be it I introduce Andrew to someone that maybe can help him with his developing problems if he had them, or whatever it is. So my only way of income is the community, be it the brands, be it the private people that want to support. So that's how I basically justify it to myself. And it's come to a point which is extremely interesting. And this is one of those things that, like I was saying, I can't really share with anybody out of the world of film photography, is that my channel is basically financed by both community, be it, someone in Vietnam that sponsors, or, Germany or anywhere as a Patreon, but also brands and their film brands. And I'm finally able to say that film brands that never thought they could sponsor something because they're newbies or they're old school are doing it because I provided them, for example, with the news, which is something everybody wants, and they are helping. So it's come to that point where I'm probably the only channel that I know of, or maybe media, that is both paid by the community and the brands. And that to me is extremely rewarding, thinking, man, I really have the public and I have the brands on my side. And not everybody likes what I do. And I've lived, like I was telling you guys before we recorded, I've been a moderator on a film photography forum for 10 years. I do know people hate what I do, and probably hate that I talk about money, and I, whatever it is, there'll always somebody that won't like it, and it's fine with me. I don't like myself half the time, so it's absolutely fine. Somebody wrote me about my mustache, which we were talking at the beginning, and said, "Why you look silly?" And I said, "That's exactly why I have it, because every morning when I wake and I look at the mirror, I laugh, and that makes me start my day with like a laugh. And every time I edit the news, I crack up because I'm like, oh my God, the mustache and my hair is all crazy. Like Andrew was saying, like, and that laughing is part of it. Like, I don't take myself seriously. Same as the YouTube channel. Like, I take it seriously, but like, I don't mind making a video that I think won't render well, because I'm like, you know what? Like we were saying, we could curse. I'm going to make this video. I don't care if it does, like it plummets. I don't mind my analytics. As long as the community has my back, the brands have my back, and eventually Instax cameras have my back, because they're the one paying the bills half the time, is that like, I don't mind it. So I'm not so concerned. I don't take it so seriously. It's just for fun.
But it's not.
I have to say, you're out of the. I subscribe to a lot of YouTube channels, and some of them irritate me, but I still follow them, and I don't know why. There's a kind of masochism or whatever. But yours, I don't. There's nothing really that you do that I find offensive, and in fact, to be honest, the way you deal with the community, I think, is just commendable. You have such a lovely way about you when you're explaining things. You're very open and honest, and you don't bullshit. You're if you don't know stuff, sometimes you say, "Well, I haven't read the manual." You're trying to explain to people how to do a long exposure on a GW 690, and then the next one, someone had clearly written to you and says, "You don't know what you're talking about. You don't do it like this." And you handle all those kind of bits of feedback really, really well. And I remember, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about it. Perhaps the Orwo, I can never say it.
Orwo, yeah.
You did there was a sort of, you talk about a bit of a rumor going around about the new color film. and then someone must have challenged you, and you came back the next week, and you just handled it really well. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I take what I do extremely seriously. I do say F it every now and then, but I take it extremely seriously. To me, film is something that if film ever disappears, I'm stopping photography. I don't care about anything else. And I love technology. I'm a super techie guy. I love cameras, and all my subscriptions on YouTube are film channels or like, video cameras and gear like that, Gerald and Dunn stuff, If you don't know who he is, go Google him. He's a pretty crazy guy. He's fun. But when I do the news, I take it extremely seriously, but I don't always have the time to do all the research sometimes. So when I said, it looks like Orwo might be coming back with color, and I say, like, it's not official. It's like a hunch or whatever you want to say. I don't know, say what the word in Spanish, presentimiento, that it's going to happen. And this guy went on like, you're just making up the news. And I was like, first of all, no, I'm not making up the news. And these are rumors. There's websites that make a great living on rumors, like big money, like Canon rumors, Fuji rumors, Sony rumors. All those people are making a ton of money through affiliate links and whatnot. So I'm not making that up. I have a glimpse of things, and I wasn't sure. And I work at a factory, and I spend 8 hours with like 90 decibels of noise all the time. So headphones like what I'm wearing now is what I live with, and I have a lot of time to think. And I was like, well, I know that Orwo did this and Orwo did that, and then this there. And I puzzled it together, and I was like, okay, I have enough information to make like a coherent journalistic piece on YouTube. And it might sound too pretentious, but that's what I felt like. So I went ahead and made that video answering Jobo is probably going to make color in some way or manner soon. And there's information out there that people don't really know. For example, that lomography film is not made by Kodak. Not all of it. The 100, 400, and 800 is Kodak gold cut into lomography color. But then, or so I've been told or heard, once again, not spreading rumors, just what I think is that. And then, for example, the experimental films, I will call them that, Metropolis or Lomo Purple, are made by these people in Germany called Innovascope or Filmotech. I never remember the names correctly. Don't quote me on that. So I was like, I can make this a proper piece. So I got the information. I got a store in Spain to send me, because when you buy film, it has to say where it's made. So they sent me the labels, and it said like Lomochrome was made in Germany. So yes, there's color being made in Germany. And it's, lomography specialty film color, not portrait tones, but it was done. So I did that. I made that video because I take it very seriously. So the same as you said, like I made a mistake with the long exposure. I'm pointing at the Fuji that I have next to me. And someone on a Discord server very nicely told me, hey, Nico, it's not really like that. They don't recommend that. I was like, oh, my God, I messed up. Okay. So I looked it up officially. No, you have to change from T time to 1 second. And that's how you do it. If not, you advance the film. And I was like, I don't want to put misinformation out there. So I went ahead and filmed the whole video again, edited it, and put it out. Because, to me, as much as I don't take it too seriously, I do take the end result seriously. So be it an interview with a brand or be it a review or how to load film, I try to put out proper information. There's one video that still has wrong information out there, which is the Pentax 6x7, which I messed up the whole prism change lens part. And I now know that YouTube will let you go into the video and edit out things. So I have to go in and cut like 10, 15 seconds where I mess up, and that will be like, why is there a jump cut? And it'll be like, well, because I messed up. Right. But yeah, I take it seriously, and I try to be as, I don't know how to explain it, like, correct with people, because it's so easy to say like, oh, fuck you, you're not right, I'm right, or screenshot a comment of haters or whatever. But most of the times the haters are the ones that love you more, because they took the time to write you something. And there's a little bit of truth in every hate comment. Be it, hey, your mustache looks silly. Yes, it does. Or be it, hey, you made this thing wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. yeah, you're right. I didn't know what I was talking about. And I think we talked about this before recording, like the videos I did on large format, like a Linhof or Toyo 45A. I wasn't really knowing what I was doing. No, I wasn't, because there's no other video out there explaining how to use those cameras. So if I'm making my first video, and I challenge you to go ahead and download the manual and try to make a video yourself and try to not make mistakes. Like, it's not easy. So I'm trying to do these things. But yeah, like when someone says, you don't know what you're doing, I'm like, you're correct. I did not. But it's better than nothing.
Right.
What have you got out there? So I saw the Toyo and I saw the Linhof. I can't remember if I've seen any more. So for people getting into large format photography, and you know, I started off and bought a Sinar F, which I then upgraded. And eventually I had a Sinar P2 and realized this thing was way too heavy, way too big, way too complicated for what I know. So I sold it. I kind of wish I'd have kept it now and bought the Toyo. You know, I don't know. But I would have loved to have just gone to a video and said, well, I wasn't sure what the difference between that was to a Vista SP something or other, or this, that. Well, there's a few of those, aren't there? Those sort of cameras that look a bit the same. So, you know, at least there's something out there now, and I don't know how many others you've done on sort of large format. Was it?
My idea is to do it all. Somebody asked me a couple of years ago, what do you want to do with your YouTube channel? I was like, I want to become the library of the internet about film photography. Yeah. Like, first, because it makes more sense than making walking around my city shooting portrait videos. And I respect people to do that. I think it's cool. It's like entertainment. And at the end of the day, YouTube is also very important to entertainment. But yeah, like I want to be the library. If I can do like, what was it? Butkus. I don't know what his name. That's another one for you. Come on, Simon, you say it. What is his name?
Yeah. I say Butkus.
Butkus, yeah, I'd say Butkus as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that one. So like that guy has every manual online pretty much. And if I could do that with videos, I would love it, because people are more visual than readers, sadly, but including myself. So yeah, like that was the idea, is like, if you're buying a large format camera, and this is a question I get all the time, I'm sure you guys get it on the podcast too, or in private on the Facebook group, is like, what camera do I buy? And 99% of the times nowadays is an Intrepid or, and I'm like, okay. And I have videos where I talk harshly about Intrepid because I love the company as what they are doing, but I think they have to improve in many things. And that's the first thing we should all do, is be able to look at ourselves and say, what do I do that's terrible? And let's improve it. And I try to do that as much as I can. I, once again, not capable of doing everything perfectly. So I'm very bad at a lot of things. But yeah, like Intrepid versus, I don't know, Toyo or Chamonix. Someone was like, the Chamonix cameras. And like, someone's like, oh, you can't compare them. I'm like, but this person asked for this. So I'm comparing it for this person. And yeah, they're totally different cameras, but you got to see them. And once you see them in video, maybe you're like, oh, well, damn, I didn't know the Chamonix was, so nice, or really kind of looks the same, because it kind of looks the same. So I try to show those things, and I don't know, I see no harm in making more, even if it's for that quick information piece that you need, or visual piece. Like I have a Toyo, what is it, TX or VX 125, which is extremely rare. It's not mine, it's a friend's. Not everything you see on the internet is true, guys, just for those people listening. I don't own everything I show. So I do have a lot of good friends. And basically that camera is so rare that a lot of people have written me like, where do you get it? I'm like, it's not mine. And they're like, I have a piece, but I'm missing. And like you said, you start with a Sinar F. That's the camera I recommend 99% of the times if I can, because there's so many parts. It's like if you buy, I don't know, cars, but let's say Toyota or Honda, it's like everybody has 100 million pieces of Hondas and Toyotas because they sell everywhere. But if you say, hey, I have an Aston Martin from 1954, how many freaking pieces of that are there around the internet? None.
Yeah. You have to be really, really good at making your own parts, basically.
Exactly.
For a lot of these. Like, I love the little old Olympus XA, little rangefinders, those little clamshells. They're brilliant. I think the design, the industrial design, is genius. They'll flip open, which they carried forward to the little MJU
Mew.
The Mew.
Those stylus.
Yeah, that is the most brilliant. The fixed lens stylus is the most brilliant travel camera I've ever used. Like for bicycle trips and whatever, weatherproofed. Like if you had to force me to take one camera on my bicycle trips, period, no digital, no nothing, I would take my Olympus because I know what it's going to do and it's bulletproof. But back to the Olympus XA is like they have a little circuit board, and when they die, they're dead.
Yeah.
So as brilliant as they are, there's no bringing them back, and you never know when you buy one if you're going to get one roll, no rolls, or 300 rolls. And so buying used camera equipment gets really, really difficult. And that whole parts availability, either manufactured or available or self-made or whatever, becomes increasingly important.
Yeah, no.
Travel. Sorry, Nico, come on.
No. I was going to say Linhof, which is another fan group that I always upset. I find them extremely well made, but it also, a lot of people put a lot of beat to them and they get very used. And there's people that are repairmen that just repair those cameras.
Right.
There's what is his name? The LA Flex. I think he's in LA. He does an amazing job. He's on Instagram stories all the time, breaking them down and putting them together. And I'm amazed at that. But like that wouldn't happen for all the brands. So like for that reason, I'll recommend a Linhof before maybe a Toyo, because Toyo cameras, they break. Where are you going to get a part?
Right. I think it's a great call. I wanted to ask you about scanning in a minute, because there's lots of developments out there for different scanning options. And I know you've featured most of them on your show. But before I ask you that question, you made that point. And again, it's about people coming into large format photography. And you said, surprisingly, I think for a lot of people, you recommended a monorail camera. But the reasons you recommended it was spot on, I think, because, you know, if you buy one and it's got loads of holes in the bellows, okay, you can fix it with some liquid and insulation tape or whatever, but you can just unclip it and go and get another one. And if you've got a front standard, you can get one for not much money. Or you could get a P standard and put it at the back, and it becomes a Sinar P
X.
Sinar,
no,
something
Sinar C, I think, was the front.
Maybe. And you can just keep playing with it, or you can just stay. You know, if you've got the bits are everywhere, aren't they? And actually, you can compress that Sinar F down and break it down into bits, stick it in a backpack, and you could still hike. You could still hike with that.
Andrew, like I'll do it the other way. Let's say you have if you're getting into large format, and everyone listening to this is either getting into it, already into it, probably already into it. Too late to turn around.
You're stuck with us now.
Yeah, like large format. You think about the price of things. You need all these bits and bobs of things, loops, lenses, cable releases, dark cloth, sturdy tripod, 3-way head, you name it. The camera almost becomes the cheapest part of it all. Like as a whole, it's the most expensive part, but at the same time, it's the cheapest compared to the rest. So if you're buying a Intrepid or a Chamonix or a Linhof brand new, you're going to spend pretty much the same amount of money on everything else. So if I could buy a Sinar F2 for 250 euros, which they are around, and the thing is, these cameras were like 10,000 back in the day, and I can buy an Intrepid for whatever, 250 pounds or something like that. I think that's the price they have. Is like, are you going to buy a secondhand Audi that is still brand new, and you can buy all the parts in the world for pennies, or you're going to buy this, I don't know, I don't know what brand of car is like, equivalent to an Intrepid, but you know what I mean. Like the Sinar is so cheap, is so good. There's so many parts. The only problem is it's slightly bigger, but that's actually good. And this is something nobody says about lightweight cameras, and I won't name any brand, but yeah, lightweight cameras, there comes to a point they're not good because they're too lightweight, because a little bit of wind will move them everywhere, because they won't lock properly and all these things. So it's like a sturdy camera will get a long way. And I'm a huge fan of Sinar or Sinar. I don't know how to say that either.
Tomato.
Yeah. So to me, is that like, how can I not recommend a brand like that? And then there's the graphics, which after 50 years or 60, the bellows are still 3 times stronger than anything else,
It's actually hilarious. You listed all the things that like a large format photographer needs, like sturdy tripod, 3-way head, loop, dark cloth, high, like a decent lens. I have none of those things.
Expensive hat?
I don't even have an expensive hat. I have like a really cheap, lightweight 2-pound tripod, no 3-way head. no loop, no dark cloth.
I'm glad you just said
Too lightweight of a camera.
I'm glad you just said loop then, because I thought you said lube at first. I was thinking, where's this going?
He might need that too.
Yeah, you might need that. Depends on how
for the bicycle.
It's lovely to hear from you, Simon, with a very insightful comment at last.
but yeah, I was like, damn, I have none.
Put your finger right on it
with the lube.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, clearly, Eric, you're not a proper large format photographer. That's all.
I've been saying that for years.
Or we're not seeing the other side of the bedroom that has all these like masochism things because he loves not having a three-way. Like you can do all these things without a three-way head, but like, I'm sorry, like challenge me to like go shoot architectural photography with me anytime, anybody in the world with a three-way head and a ball head. And like I'll freaking take coffee and pasta and like the pasta's like I don't know what macaroons whatever there, and I'll sit down and eat and drink while you're still trying to level that thing. It's impossible.
100%. I'm not saying it's a good thing that I don't have any of these things. I'm laughing at myself that I don't have any of these things.
I have some and I don't have others.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a three-way head, especially as I wander into heavier cameras and other things. Like, honestly, shooting with the speed graphic and that lightweight tripod, it's a giant pain in the ass a lot of the time.
So you like the sadomasochism. I'm telling you.
I do. But there's also a thing of like...
the bicycle seat, that's part of it.
Yeah, like those tripods and like how much more weight is that? They add 10 pounds to your kit. Like, do I fiddle with a ball head for a little bit
or no tripod head?
Yeah.
I've done that, like no tripod head, and just like push one leg higher and be like, okay, I think that's the limit where it will go front heavy and fall.
Dude, I've totally done that. That's actually how I scan my negatives with a DSLR with a shitty tripod, like one leg up further than the others with a really heavy weight to the back to keep it from tippling over with the weight.
I've done that. I've done that for video, and it's turned out bad a couple of times.
It's terrifying.
Scanning negatives. I did want to ask, Nico, you've been showcasing. There's so many different ways of digitizing negatives that are coming onto the market. What's most impressed you out of all the different things that you've seen, particularly with one eye on large format, but it doesn't necessarily need to be large format because I see these various systems. I tend to switch off because I'm not really into scanning. But just tell us a little bit about some of the options out there for digital scanning, digitizing, particularly 4x5 negatives.
I think I hate scanning too. I'll start there too. Andrew, I'm with you. I think scanning is it defeats the fun of it. It's like if you cooked a meal and you're taking selfies with it before you eat it, I just want to
Instagram.
Yeah. I just want to go ahead and put it in the enlarger and do a print or a contact print. But I mean, there's been a bunch of products. They've got the Pixelator. We have the Negative Supply. We have this guy Abdi made one for 4x5 too. Like, honestly, I understand the future in many ways could be that route for 35 and 120. I think for large format, it's not there yet. I find that, you need a flat negative. You need a way to keep dust out of it. You need a way, all these ways to like make the best you can. As I don't like scanning, I treat scanning as basically, let me put this on social media. Nobody cares if it's absolutely flat and square. So I'll throw it on my Epson V, 700 or something I have. And I'll just go like, I throw it on the scanner and hit scan. And basically I'll have Newton rings that nobody can see because of course we're putting it on Instagram. So who cares? Or I'll send it to my WhatsApp relatives and family members and I'll be like, look, a picture of your grandchildren on large format. And they'll be like, oh, the kid looks great. What's large format? So because nobody cares.
Why didn't you use your phone like a normal person?
Yeah, exactly. Every time I post something like that in a family group, I always think, they probably think like, what the f*** is he doing all this for that, But yes, we love it. Once again, I think we're sadomasochists or something like it. But I think all these new tools are first generation in a way. There's no tech to them. I mean, they're just a rectangle. It could be a like a frame from the £1 shop, and you take off the picture of that ugly woman with colorful dress and you put your negative on top and just shoot. So I'm not saying they don't have some stuff to it, but I think that if you're trying to digitize, a flatbed is pretty much never a bad investment. Like I think the Epson 4990 is like the old school V700. It does like 4x5, 5x7, 8x10. You just put it on the glass and let's go. If you're digitizing with a digital camera, then the light, like one of the guys I'm meeting now for a beer, he scans just putting his negative on a light table with some tape. And he does amazing results like that. So no disregard to the brands making stuff, but I think large format is so simple in that way that it's just a piece of paper, call it film, and you're just trying to shoot it from the top. So I don't think we should spend a lot of money for something that doesn't have any software, doesn't have anything, no digital ice, no nothing like that. So I will just use it sometimes, but not really. Like I'll scan with the Epson large format, and I have the negative supply one, but the bottom is like acrylic or something, which is like making your holder like as dust friendly as possible, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't use it. They've changed since then.
I think if you want to go out and buy an Epson flatbed scanner, 850 is probably still available new. I think I saw an advert pop up on
They're
Facebook.
So expensive. No, get the 750. It's the same thing.
Well, can you buy them new if you wanted to buy them new?
No, but I mean, come on, guys. Can you buy your camera new? Yeah, like can you buy your lens new? Can you buy like a half the stuff we use new? No. The Epson V50 and V700. Sorry, the V500. I'm messing up. The 700 and the 750.
Yeah.
Are exactly the same as the 800 and 850, except the light source changed to LED, and I think they added like one more little. Like there's basically no difference.
No.
And then if the V500, 600, whatever number they are, 550, if it would do 4x5, it's the same. I've compared one next to the other with 120. Exactly the same. Because first of all, Epson or whoever is usually lies half the time with the resolution. It's like interpolated or whatever you call it. And they're adding pixels that are not, I don't know what that magic is happening. I'm not a digital guy. But yeah, like you don't really need like the latest and greatest. And the Epson 4990 is like an older version. It came with masks for everything. They usually sell on like Craigslist or whatever secondhand, weird website that people have in their country for like $50.
Yeah, I have one. The challenge is software compatibility, making sure it's actually
ViewScan. ViewScan. Like ViewScan's like the book tooth of like software. Like he makes everything work.
And then the second challenge with older scanners is inevitably there's a shit ton of dust underneath the glass.
Oh, I made a video on how to clean that.
Yeah,
it's so
exactly.
easy.
And you have to disassemble them and clean them, use the whole anti-static cloth and like some high quality and a lot of like the dust rocket.
What about certainly I'm staring at my V500, which is the only film scanner I've ever had. I've had it about 8 or 9 years now and it's fine, but I don't, it's just for throwing stuff up there on, as you said, for Instagram or whatever. And I just hate it really. I don't mind. I go and scan a print, which I've made in the darkroom. That's kind of all right. But is it on the 750s or the 700s? The carrier, there's supposed to be an improved carrier where you can adjust the scan height. And I've seen people saying that's made a great, I think Nick Carver even did a video and he said it made such a difference, which why I was kind of interested when you talk about you just throwing it down on the glass. Isn't there like an optimum height that it's supposed to be?
I'll give you a little bit of information on that. The Epsons are also made to scan magazines. So where in the world are you going to put a magazine in a holder? No, doesn't exist. So you put your magazine on top of the glass.
Yeah, well, you would for a...
Exactly, like a normal photocopy machine or whatever it is. Yeah. So I've scanned Polaroids and I've scanned magazines for PDF. Like I've bought like the manuals for cameras, and I even had a feature on my YouTube channel that were manuals only, which that was the geekiest I've ever gone, I think. And I would video and just flip the pages because those manuals to me are so cool. Because sometimes you miss what parts. I'm getting out of the way. So I've scanned magazines on the Epson and they were tack sharp. So if that was sharp, and I've done Polaroids and they were tack sharp, so why, like film, I found it sharp enough. I've never found a flaw except for Newton rings. And Nick Carver, I respect him tremendously. He is a fine art photographer. That's what Americans call themselves.
Hey, now.
It's true. That's everybody's a fine art photographer, and I'm sure he is. He's a great photographer. I'm not making fun of that part, but like he makes a living out of this. He sells prints. He makes massive prints. So like he's looking for optimal resolution. He's probably tested and he's very thorough with his stuff. So maybe it's true, but honestly, I don't care. I really don't care, because if I want optimal sharpness, I'll just buy the latest Fuji medium format, whatever, and shoot something and point at a bunch of bricks and see if there's distortion, make my own presets and, whatever. I'm shooting film because I enjoy it. And if I want to make something that looks great, I'll go in the enlarger or darkroom. I'll make a contact print and I'll send it to you.
And we wait for Intrepid to bring out their 8x10. So that, they've got their new 35-120 coming out, haven't they?
Yeah, the 8x10 enlarger is such a bad idea. And being an owner of one, it's like Eric was saying, the dust. Like, speak about size and dust probability. If a 4x5 has 3 specks of dust, an 8x10 has 4 times more. The carrier of the 8x10 is 8x10, so all the corners are full of dust and you can't really clean it, because it's basically that, like when you're trying to hoover the corner in your kitchen and you're like, how do I get to that little corner? Well, it's the same thing. Like, it's really hard to clean and get clean. Like, I got my 8x10 enlarger because I was like, 8x10 is the thing to have. I want to print 8x10 huge, like everybody thinks about before getting into the darkroom and doing really, work. And then when I got it, I did an 8x10, I think on 16x20 paper. I was like, this is such a work, like so much work, so much dust, so much. And I was like, I'm never, ever doing an enlarged 8x10. I'm only doing contact prints, which are beautiful. And speaking of that, I went to the new Topographics exhibit here in the museum a couple of years ago, and there was like contact prints of Nicholas Nixon and Stephen Shore and and I was like, those prints looked so good. And I mean, so good. I was like, if they look good for them, it looks good for me. And that's what I go. Like, I only do contact prints on 8x10 now. I do contact prints on 4x5 and an enlarged 4x5 every now and then for like 8x10-ish, because sometimes I want to. But that's it. And I have an 11x14, which I bought before the enlarger, thinking, I'll just do 11x14 contact prints. And I've done a couple, and it's amazing. But
can I ask you a question then? Because I've done a little bit of contact printing, and the control, unless you've got a really perfect negative, whatever that is, there's still going to be some local dodging and burning, and that's I find that pretty hard to do in contact prints, because you can't, with a projected image, you can see the image, can't you? And you can put things in the light path, but trying to do dodging and burning with a contact print is.
I never had much of a problem. I mean, when I do contact prints, most of the time, first of all, contact prints retain pretty much it's the maximum amount of detail you can contain, because you're not enlarging it. Yeah. So the moment you enlarge something, the bigger the differences will be. So the darker areas and the lighter areas, there'll be less gray in the middle. So the tones disappear. And actually, if you make a 4x5 of a 35 mil print, and then and then you do an 8x10, you'll lose like the grays, and you have to work more into getting the same result. If you can even get it, I don't think I could. But when I'm doing contact prints, first of all, you have like the most amount of detail and grayscale. And then I usually rarely dodge and burn 8x10 stuff. I never shoot like a super high contrast scene. And if I did, which I have done before, with a friend that's a way better printer than I am in the darkroom, he did an 8x10 of my wife with a white background that was in the sun. He managed to make that white background have detail by just burning the hell out of it. I mean, you're seeing the projected image pretty much. Well, not the image, but once the light is hitting, you kind of see it, because the paper is white, the negative is black and white. Yeah, true. So you kind of see it. I mean, on 4x5, I would never try. Like, I mean, 4x5 is so small. Like, where do you put your hand in? Like, you gotta have like little mice, like little things to like dodge and burn, like a little eye here. Like 8x10 is a little bigger, and 11x14 is even bigger.
Okay, well now it seems like a stupid question I asked you, so
no, but that brings us. that brings
I
us
think
back
I'd like to try. I'd like to try some. I shall now go and do some 4x5 contact prints because I've never really done it. I just put it in my. I've got the DeVere 4x5 enlarger and
do postcards, like you said. Do the postcard.
Yeah.
Postcard. I had a project with a travel wide where I was going to shoot every day for a year. I bought 400 sheets of film and I shot them in 3 months. And that's when I was like, okay, I can't do this because I'm shooting way too much film. And my developing backlog was huge. And I was shooting Fomapan 400 pushed to 1600. And I was handhold.
So much fun.
It's so the quality is amazing. Like that film at 16, I went for the massive dev chart and I didn't do any testing. I just developed it, boom, batched everything the same. No N+1. And I'm sorry for those that love that. It's not for me. And I basically did that. And when I did the contact prints, the prints look amazing. The grain is barely there because you're doing contacts. The paper also usually kind of absorbs or, swallows that grain into that texture. All I print is always Ilford warm tone fiber base, which to me looks lovely. And it's I think it's the shiny one, which is not that shiny. The matte one is way too matte. And basically, that's what I did. And I realized this looks amazing. Why should I do more?
Yeah, with the travel in particular, it's fun to shoot. I did that exact same experiment once the T-Max 3200 came out. Let's shoot this in the middle of the day, get huge chunky grain and just maximum aperture. And but you could do that with a travel wide, push the film to 1600 and shoot huge depth of field and just really point and shoot the travel wide the way it was sort of intended to and get this really high contrast, no grain at all because it's 4x5. Sure, let's do this.
I had two for a while. I actually have two again now. I bought another one. And I had one with a 65, which was, with no shims, no helical. And then it had one with a 90 with a helical. And I would walk around and my there's a video out there. You guys could search for it. It's travel wide backpack or something, 4x5. And my strap was a shoelace because you couldn't really put any strap on it. And I would use a shoelace and a strap, and that's what I shot. I went to London and I shot in a film and beer meeting, which is what I used to do, a little meet and greet thing with the negative feedback guys. And I had a shoestring also doubled as flash distance. So I would put the shoestring to their face, and that was exactly my flash at 1.1 power f/22. And I have shots of them like that. And I did portraits with it. So it was such a fun camera, but the problem was that I shot so much film so fast that I was I can never develop this at a reasonable rate. So I just stopped.
It's using the converted Polaroid 110s into a 4x5 rangefinder. I've converted an 800, sort of the same form factor but a different lens, and you just shoot. It's like shooting a rangefinder street photography Leica, but with a 4x5, and you just rip through the film.
And Fomapan here in Europe, at least in Germany, Mako Direct or Photo Impex, which is where I get my stuff, is 30 euros for 50 sheets. Yeah, so it's cheap. 80 cents a shot. It's cheaper than shooting any color negative nowadays in any format. So I was this is so cheap. Let me just shoot 14 pictures. And I made this project I was going to shoot every single day. So I would go into Bilbao, which is the city I live in. I live in the outskirts. I would go to Madrid. I went to London. I would shoot every day. I shot the Tate Modern. I shot everywhere. And it was I would walk around with a Domkey, I don't know, the small one. I don't know what the name is. They have the worst naming system.
It's the F802 or something like that.
Yeah, or the F2 or F6, the smaller one, not the super small. And I would have my travel wide with 7 film holders, which are doubles. So you got 2 shots. Plus a light meter, which is a Sekonic 308, and no viewfinder. I never used the viewfinder because I got so used to it that I just knew what was in and what wasn't in. And I loved it. I just shot too much.
The travel wide, did those guys ever resurface, or is that...
You want to watch my channel soon. I won't say more. Oh, I would say it's interesting because they kicked off that whole single body cone movement.
Yeah, they were the first ones, weren't they? They were years ago.
I would say they were too early. There was when there's tech and you're this was too early. Well, they were too early for the game. I was their backer number 4. That's how excited I was when they came out on the Kickstarter. I bought mine for $40. That was their early bird something. And I loved it. Loved it. I love the concept. I loved how they made it. Ben, who's one of the co-founders, I've talked to him many times. I would not say we're friends. We're internet friends, or at least acquaintance. I don't know if that's the right word. Acquaintances. I'm Spanish, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering. So yeah, basically that was a lot of fun, and there will be some news on TravelWide.
We're going to have to but let's just pause it here a moment, because I'm not sure whether we're still recording. Simon says he's lost sound.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're not sure. Are we still recording, Simon? You can't even
I guess
say.
we'll find out. I mean, I
think he was wanting us to start winding down, mindful of your time. Anyway, hang on a second.
Yeah, of beers.
Are we still...
He's lost sound.
Yeah, I don't know what he means by that. Whether he just can't hear us, or you'll have to finish off without me. Oh, well.
Oh, well. I don't know if we can. That beautiful film noir look.
No, he has a very professional way of finishing the podcast. He says yes. Carry on. Okay, so we'll take a pause, and then we'll perhaps start to wind the show down. I'm mindful of your time constraints.
You can have your beers in the sun.
Nico.
Yeah, no worries.
We'll take a slight pause, and
but yeah, dude, the TravelWides are super fun.
We'll take a slight pause. Okay, so I think we probably need to start winding things down a bit, mainly because Simon's just disappeared and he's left us to it.
Yeah.
So the lunatics have taken over the asylum. So we await the special news all about TravelWide. Is that coming soon then, Nico? Is that...
It was meant to be recorded on December, so let's say it will be out when it's out.
Exciting stuff.
It's kind of like the TravelWides themselves. Like, they were sort of out when they were out. Like, they were super late. But again, they were ahead of the curve, and they just didn't... I don't think anybody back then, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, actually really understood the Kickstarter and mass production of bespoke things the way they do now, right? Like, now they got down to a science, and Matt can just pump these things out. Like,
I mean, I think their biggest problem was they did not understand like injection, like the whole process. Mm-hmm. So they probably lost a lot of the money, I think, trying to figure that out. I think they even made a couple like molds that didn't work. So he basically said, like, if I would have known there was like experts in this, I would have hired them. Right. But yeah, I think that's basically the main concern that happened there. But there will be news soon on them, and we'll see. Honestly, I still haven't spoken properly all about it, but as soon as I have that, it'll be on the news, and you guys will know about it.
Excellent. Well, I think on that note, I think is a good time to start to wind things down. Simon's wandered off. We know Simon's wandered off because we're staring at an empty chair. So, Nico, thank you so much for being with us this week. It's been a real pleasure. Just remind folks listening where they can go to keep up with everything that you do.
I would suggest that every time you Google something, I'm probably like one of the top videos on the top because I make a lot of videos. But Nico's Photography Show on YouTube, and then on social media, I'm under my name, Nicholas Llasera, which is probably not easy to understand, but you guys, I'm sure, will put it on the show notes. It's not on the title. Yeah. But through YouTube, you can find all the socials too if you need to. So that's where I am at. And emails, websites, it's nicosphotography.com, then Superfilm Support, which is where I basically geek out once a week and try to help anyone, newbies or not. So yeah, many ways to find me.
That's great. Your film support, Superfilm Support, is a great little offshoot.
Yes.
Eric, where do folks find you when you're not here with us?
My head buried in the sand somewhere, but pretty much online only, Instagram nowadays. So ERIKHMATHY. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And
I'm simple.
Simon can be found. Where can he be found? Classic Lenses podcast. Is that what it is? We don't know, do we? Yes. Something like that.
We could.
And he has a website. He has a website where he sells lens caps and does things.
Yes.
He's been on the news.
Yes, you've had his. What have you had on his lens caps
I've had
his
some
inserts for Pixelator?
Yeah, for the Pixelator, I've had him on the news.
Yeah, so he makes the inserts, some of the inserts for the Pixelator. I think he works with Hamish on that. And as for me, you can find me either here or in the Lensless Podcast Facebook group, or every couple of weeks on the Lensless Podcast. And I'm Warboy Snapper on most medium. What else do we have to say to wrap this show up? People can give us a cup of coffee if they can find it. So we don't really know if it's very easy to find. We don't think it is, but we do have a coffee account. And Simon may have had donations, but we don't know.
And I'll just say that, Nico, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Absolute pleasure finally, again, crossing paths with you, albeit virtually. I can't wait to see where you go. No, I mean, we know where you're going, right? But we can't break this. We can't break the story.
Oh, you can say, I've said it before. I'm moving to Finland, so I'll be there. But and what you said at the beginning, that road trip around the US, that's going to happen the moment I can, travel properly. So that will happen. The problem is, since I first thought about that idea till today, there's probably 20 more stops. So I need a whole month of driving through the US to fulfill that. But I'll be in your part of town soon.
All right, let's do it.
I had a month driving around the US, but that's another story. So if you donated to the coffee account, thank you very much. If you've emailed us, thank you very much. We'll get around to reading those. Eric, where can people send emails to if they want to get in touch with the show?
Oh, you're a jerk. It is largeformatphotographypodcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, are you sure there's not a "the" in there?
I don't know. Is there a "the" in there?
No,
that's
I
the
don't
part
think
I always screw up.
No,
I didn't think so either.
Just guys on the show notes. That's it.
Well,
Yeah.
I know.
We do all this, but we do all this because Simon does it all, so we feel obliged to. And
Did you know that on Google you can't have a Gmail that has support in it? I tried to do a Superfilm support at Gmail, and it's only for paid accounts.
Oh,
because
really?
it's just in case, I don't know, Adobe decides to have a freebie account. It's come on, guys. The Superfilm support can't have his own email. So I think it's Nico film something. That
just to just a very, very last finish off. When I announced that we were having someone on the show who brought us the news every week.
Yep.
Guy Bellingham, former guest on the show, said, "Dave Burnett, we love Dave Burnett." And people started getting excited about Dave Burnett and his large format news photography. I said, no, he's Spanish and he brings you the photo news. I said, Greg Obst said something like, I haven't got the quote in front of me.
I've got the quote in front of me.
Have you gone then?
Yeah, I've got it. It's hilarious. It's Nico is a cool dude too. Not David Burnett cool, but maybe one day.
The joke in the Spanish community is I'll be the Spanish Ken Rockwell. So that's where I'm aiming for.
Well, I'm sure that's something to aspire to. Nico, thank you very, very much. And this is the point where, apart from Simon, we all say goodbye to everyone listening. So
I thank you.
See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.